Hello, how are we? It is the day of the Siren Songs Workshop. I am so excited to be here. Our goal today is to really identify the sirens in our life. So I labeled this workshop the Siren Songs because it's really about different things that pull us off our life path, things that sing to us or flirt us to do things that maybe we don't want to do or maybe don't know we don't want to do. And so today's goal really is about identifying what those are, what are the blocks to our decision making, and how we can actually clear them to live the life that we really want to live. So let's talk about what is a siren song. So I gave modern day siren song interpretation of, these calls, these things that pull us off our path, but where did it originate? So I'm no historian, but I will give you a little Greek mythology, little story time here, okay? So a siren song typically refers to these Greek mythology creatures, this half woman, half bird, who would sing songs and lure sailors off their path and have their boats crash into the shores or crash into the island in which they inhabited. Now, why are these sirens calling and distracting everybody? Well, these sirens, originally it was just three of them, and they were the handmaidens of Persephone. And so Persephone was kidnapped by Mr. Hades and were so distraught and besides themselves that their friend was taken away, and they went on this search party for her. And to help them search even easier and faster, they were granted wings. So they were kind of turned into this half woman, half winged creature so that they could try to find Persephone quicker and faster. Well, as the story goes, they did not find her quick or at all. And so when they gave up the search, they landed on this island. And part of what stuck with them is that, they felt abandoned, they felt distraught, they were mad. And so that's why they were just kind of taunt these people because, if they couldn't have, their maiden back, then what was life worth living? And so they just caused a lot of problem for people passing by. They were offloading their baggage onto other people. So, and this goes on for years and years. And so they're just hanging out on this island doing their thing. And then some along the line, AKA Odysseus, they're like, okay, I need to go on this path. I have a vision. I'm going this way, but I have to go by this island, which is known to draw people in and crash ships. So he enacted a plan to tie himself to the mast of his boat so he couldn't steer and to listen to the songs and steer. And so he just tied himself to the mast, and he had all of his ship's crew fill their ears with wax so that they couldn't hear the songs. They're just watching him direct them where to go while they passed this island, right? And so obviously the sirens were pretty damn pissed that their songs were not working, and they just gave up and drowned themselves. No. Very dramatic, right? Remember, Greek mythology is not really real, it's just a legend. However, legends are lessons and they ring with truth. Well, and that's true with this one too, right? And so really it's all about the sirens. They started off as this trusted relationship. These were the direct caretakers of this woman. It's a very loving, nurturing, caring relationship. But when they felt abandoned, when they felt hurt that she was taken away, they had opinions about that. They had anger issues, they had abandonment issues. And so they offloaded that baggage onto people, passing by their island. And so it's really about projecting this negative energetic state based on their lived experience. And so it really shows us, the lesson here is that oftentimes it's the people closest to us or things directly near us that have the most power to draw us off our path. Just thinking about that story, can you think of a time that pulled me off path, or loving relationships or loving containers or experiences that, on the surface, want the best interest with me, but maybe carry a little bit of baggage behind it. So I just want you to think about that. Because in a minute, we're going to talk about different areas that influence us. Now, obviously today, we are not sailing the seven seas, right? We're not navigating ships around these islands. However, we are navigating our own lives. We learn from our main caretakers, we learn from our culture, we learn from our society, but we navigate our own free will. We get to choose what we're available for and what we're not available for. And all of that decision making is based on your experiences and what you energetically allow. It's all everything that influences you. Nothing is in one straight line. It has many influences. So let's talk about 5 main areas or influences on us. So we already talked briefly about this, but the first one being primary relationships. Your parents, siblings, maybe your grandparents, a close friend, your boss, your neighbor that you see every single day. So if you think about the 5 people that you always hang around all the time, you start morphing into them. So think about these people, people that interact with you that have a primary influence in your life. This could even be celebrities or influencers. If you follow certain accounts and they're in your feed all the time, or you're always being exposed to them through like television or radio, that's a main influence in your life. You start taking their opinions, filtering it through your own, and that allows you to create your own. So primary relationships is one of the main influences on you. Now, the second area of influence is our circumstances. What is going on in your life? When I say circumstances, what I'm talking about are things outside of our control. So these are not things that are opinion-based, they are fact-based. It either is or it isn't. Circumstances is anything that can be proved in a court of law. Being a certain economic status, like that's a circumstance. Having a genetic illness, that's a circumstance. No one like asks for that. It just is a fact of life. Like certain things can be changed, yes, but your circumstances are your circumstances. Maybe it's, you have young children, but you don't have any support. Maybe it's, you're going through a divorce, whether it be, an intimate partner or even a business partner. That's a circumstance. So your circumstances are huge influences on your decision making, because that's something that it's an energy that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So these have huge influences on us. The third main area of influence is morality. So think about all the ethic standards that you live by. What are your golden rules that you live by? Maybe you're heavily influenced on your religion. If your church or any religion has some certain rules that you live by, that is a main influence on how you make decisions in your life. Any of your spiritual code of conducts or just how you conduct yourself, your kind of moral rules that you live by. Those are huge influences on how we make decisions in our life, whether what we choose is for us and what's not for us. The fourth main area that influences us is culture, right? So kind of like morality a little bit, but societal rules. Like what are the laws that you have to live by, like whatever country you're in or whatever town you're in, whatever city you're in. Around your privileged status. A lot of people, especially in the US, have different levels of privilege that they are afforded, and so that affects their decision making on things they do and don't do. Technology and innovation, artificial intelligence, that affects your decision making. And even, part of culture, arts and music. One of the things I love about art and music is that it's a great influencer because people often use that as a way to process their own energy, process their own gifts, process their own trauma. Art is felt medium. It's usually less thinking. It's a lot more heartfelt. The fifth area that influence us is intuition. What are your gut feelings? What are your instinctual feelings? Well, we all have intuition. Your intuition is your inner voice. It's your inner moral compass that kind of guides you. For me, from my view of intuition, it is what leads us to stay on our soul's path. So when we're incarnated in this lifetime, we have a plan about what we want to experience, things we want to learn, lessons we want to learn while we're in this lifetime. And our intuition is the way that leads us to that destiny, that leads us along that path. Now, free will being what it is, obviously you can do free will, but listening to that inner voice, your intuition, those gut feelings, that is a major influence on your decision making. And oftentimes our intuition is the first thing that can be ignored with outside influence, right? So intuition is a very internal influence. Only you know what your intuition is telling you, but oftentimes that is directly affected by outside influences. So when we think about these 5 main influences, so our primary relationships, our circumstances, our morality, our culture, our intuition, we take all of that in, and when we're making decisions, it's all through the lens of what do I think? First, we go inward, like, what is my gut feeling? Like, what is my gut feeling about this decision? And then we immediately go outward. What will these main influences think of my decision? And that's the thing about decision making and goal setting and life path decisions is you can follow what someone else has done, but at the end of the day, it's your life. You have to live with all of the decisions you make. You have that free will. And if you find yourself feeling stuck a lot in your decision making, or feel like if you're making the wrong choices or consistently not feeling fulfilled in your choices, look to these main influences we just talked about, because usually there's one that's the shadow that's pulling, the siren that's pulling you away from your intuition, that siren that's increasing that self-doubt in your decisions. And so as you hear all that, I'm sure your brain is already going, kind of conjuring up like, ooh, like immediately I'm thinking of this person, or immediately I'm thinking of this activity or this influence. Do this exercise for yourself, because, you know, what we're trying to do here is identify our own modern day sirens, right? If we know what our main influences are, then we can help identify exactly those sirens that pull us off their path, because it's going to be connected to one of those 5 main influencers. Okay, so now that we've talked about the 5 different areas of main influences on us, and we've identified some modern day sirens, let's now shift into what are the blocks to navigating our own free will and living the life we want. So if we can identify the sirens, now it's what is the actual block from that siren? What exactly is the song they are singing? And this is where you can get a little bit more refined. And so I have 7 different possible blocks for you. Sometimes it's just 1, sometimes it's all 7, sometimes it's more that I don't have on this list. So realize everyone has their own mix and flavor here. The primary block to navigating your own free will and decision making is expectations. Expectations are everything. It is not only the pressure from yourself, or really the pressure from expectations of others. So if one of the primary influences on you, like a parent or a boss or something, if you know that they have high expectations, not only for themselves, but for you, that's going to be this pressure on you. It's going to influence the decision. I see this one happen a lot for my people pleasers. Like, oh, it makes me uncomfortable to know that they're upset. Let me make them right and feeling good so that way I can feel good. So he's taking responsibility for other people's state of being. The second block to navigating free will and decision making is the fear of failure. Now, this is huge. So we talked about people pleasers. This is perfectionists. Fear of failure. This is about lack of self-trust. It's limited beliefs. This is fear of being inferior. This is more of the inaction. I don't do something because I'd rather not do it than have to process what it feels like to fail at something. Like, what if it doesn't work out? And the thing about fear of failures is you never know until you do it, right? There's no guarantee, but there's this block that we can put on ourselves that we tell ourselves it's a guarantee. Well, I can't be a failure. You associate that with your sense of self-worth. And so you end up not being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and taking risk on yourself. Third one very similarly connected to the fear of failure, is the fear of rejection. So it's not only will I fail if I do this, it's will people reject me if I do this? So it's not even a fail or succeed. That's also subjective, but this is more personal. Not only will I feel like a failure, I will feel like people won't accept my authentic self. So having this fear of rejection, it's about vulnerability. It's opening yourself up to interpretation, like take me or leave me. So there's a lot of vulnerability. The fear of rejection is real, and it can really keep you playing small or keep you playing in a lane that is sociably acceptable, but inside you're dying inside. So this is a huge block to navigating decisions. Also somewhat related, the fourth block here is limited self-expression. So that's another way of saying you're fearful of being your true self. If I say what's truly on my mind, if I do things because I actually want to do them, whether they're guilty pleasures or not, there's this fear of if I'm my true self, something bad will happen to me. That's a huge influence on how you make decisions and where you are in life. And it's really about just the fear of and consequences of being your true self. Number 5 is lack of boundaries. So when we talk about a boundary, what we're talking about is a set of rules. It's like a manual for someone else on how they're allowed to be around you or how you want to be treated. It tells people, this is what I'm available for, this is not what I'm available for. Boundaries create room for our own existence. And when we don't have boundaries in place, that's a huge block to your free will, because then people can just walk all over you or feel like you're energetically available to whatever they want. Boundaries are everything. Now let's move into lack of vision, meaning what do you want? What do you want in your life? How do you want to live your life, right? Most of us can't decide what we want for dinner, and that's like a natural human thing. We need to eat to live. And so this decision making on what do I want to do with my life, having that lack of vision, like that's a block, right? And when we talk about vision, it doesn't have to be a totally detailed script about do this, then that, then this, then that. If you have that, great. But as we operate and live in life, we are influenced by different things and we grow and change. And so when we're growing and changing, all of that plays into our decision making. So when we talk about a vision, we talk about big picture. We talk about our why. If you don't know what you want, you'll just follow the sirens because they're like, okay, well, they have a plan. I'll just follow theirs because I don't have my own, right? And then lastly, limited beliefs. Because setting high standards or having this like code that you live by, a lot of times we emotionally vote on those. And so we'll make up stories and tell ourselves, of course this is true. This is what I believe. Of course this has to be true. When really it's not really true. It just may be reinforced by different things around you. And those limiting beliefs are to allow us to feel safe. It's our ego telling us, if you go big, that's scary, vulnerable, don't do that. Or don't change. Our bodies like homeostasis. They like the consistency, they like rhythm. And so a limiting belief is, who am I to go save the world? Who am I to invent this new technology? So it's a little bit like imposter syndrome. We create these limiting beliefs because either we don't have mentors to tell us that anything's possible, or unconditional loving support that tells us anything is possible, or we listen to the 1% of evidence that has shown us otherwise. So these sirens, when they couldn't find Persephone, they just unleashed their baggage on other people. And so a lot of these influences on us in our decision making, really what we're really filtering is other people's baggage. You have maybe a parent that says you are going to go to college, or you're only going to go to an engineering school, or you're going to be a doctor, or you're whatever it is, whatever the expectation is, right? A lot of that strong belief system that is being influenced on you, that's that person's baggage, or that's that institution's baggage that they're forcing on you. So it's really being able to see, differentiating, is this my baggage or am I people pleasing their baggage? And that's hard. And that's really listening to your intuition, really listening to your own heart's desires. And so how do you move through all these blocks, especially when you've got the block cocktail, right? When you've got all the things in there blocking you, trying to get on your path in decision making. The first thing is just to reframe your limiting beliefs. It's really nurturing your self-worth, nurturing unconditional self-love. And those are kind of big umbrella words, but all of that in it is creating self-accountability, self-discipline, all of that discernment about what you're available for, what you're not available for, boundaries. So reframing your limiting beliefs, that's how you move through blocks. Secondly, you have to create a rock solid plan. What is your strategy to prioritize yourself? How do you make sure that your voice is the loudest one in the room and it's not these influences on you? Like, yes, you want to listen to them, right? You can listen to them. But, when you're in that filtering refinement, how do you make sure that your needs are actually met? Thirdly, you'll need some resiliency and you'll need problem solving prowess. So, you can have a plan, you can have a strategy, but what happens when, things go wrong? Or what happens when you have this life altering event? Well, all of a sudden your plan needs to be updated, right? So you'll need to have some resiliency skill sets built in to weather those storms, to make sure that you can actually keep going with your strategy that is going to work for you. You also need to partner with your intuition. Your intuition is your inner voice. It is always constant. It will always be there for you, and it always wants the best for you. So when really developing a relationship with your intuition, that alone will help you in probably about 90% of your decisions you will ever make. And so it's finding that relationship. And then lastly, I'll add how to move through these blocks. Get a mentor, get a coach. Hello, right? You want to find somebody who's been there, done that, has navigated the sirens that you're dealing with, and they can really help fast track your way through that. That's what I do in my coaching program. I help people create and strategize a plan. I help people have problem solving skills. I help people set things in place so when life interacts with you, you don't skip a beat, you just keep on going. And then decisions become really, really easy. If those are things that maybe you're already implementing, or if there's maybe one of those that feels a little like it needs more nurturing in your life, reframing your limiting beliefs, creating a rock solid plan or strategy to prioritize yourself, resiliency and problem solving, partnering with your intuition, or even having a coach or mentor to help you through that. So I'm just curious, which ones do you already have in place? And which ones do you maybe want to nurture or bring into your life? So I'm really curious. I would love to hear. I would like to lead you all through a limiting belief exercise. So this is where you need your pen and paper or your type, whatever you want to do. If you want to open up like a notes app or whatever. We're going to go through 4 different steps for our limiting belief. And so I want you to identify a limiting belief or a belief that you have in your life. It can be anything, right? Even if you don't know it's a limiting belief. But what is something in one of your belief systems that you think is true? So just write that down right now. Now, number 2, when did you decide this belief? How old were you? What kind of person were you? What kind of experience were you going through when you decided that this belief was true? All right, so number 3, what did you learn from this so you can release this limiting belief? And then finally, the 4th step of this exercise, what do you want instead? What's a new belief that would be more productive for you? What's a new belief that's more inspiring for you, that is very motivating and maybe will want to create some action? So what do you want instead? What's the belief you want instead? Okay. Again, quickly, 1, what is identify the belief? 2, when did you decide this belief was true? 3, what did you learn from it? And what's the lesson so you can release that limiting belief? And then finally, what do you want instead? I just want to give you an example of my own life. Sometimes hearing an example will help activate some ideas for you. So, an example for me, what is a belief that I had? One of the beliefs I had was, as a movement practitioner, and especially someone who helps people with chronic injuries, a belief system I had is, because I help people, I didn't deserve to charge for my services. Because I'm helping someone, I should want to do that out of the kindness of my heart. So there's no way that I should ask for money, or that there any way that I would ever like be rich, whatever that means, doing this as a living. Okay, so that's a belief system I had, is because I help people, I should do that for free and I should charge for that. When did I decide this? So really, it wasn't even when I had my first Pilates job, but it wasn't until I was actually living in Connecticut. My husband, active duty Navy, we moved up there, and I opened up my own mini studio, right? I bought this Pilates reformer. I was teaching out of a gym up there. And it was the first time that I actually got to set my own prices. It was the first time that I had full control over my profession and my services that I was offering people. I had experience. I had worked in Kansas City. I had worked in DC for 2 years. I was working at studios in Connecticut at the time too. So I had a baseline of what I should charge, but it wasn't until I set it for myself and people reacted to that. I got pushback from my prices, which were actually very in line with what people were charging. So it wasn't some extraordinary, in fact, it was actually under market value. That is when I made that decision, because I got so much pushback. And the story I was telling myself was, for many people, Pilates was an extra form of fitness. Like, they had their main cardio strength training. And then, oh yeah, I'm in pain, so I'll also add Pilates onto that. So the story I was telling myself is, because people were thinking of it as like an extracurricular activity, that it wasn't valued as much. Even though I was getting them out of pain, even though I was doing things for them that their strength and cardio was not doing for them, I delivered a lot of value. But to the prospects that I was talking to, they didn't value it. So it made it, so that was the siren for me. That was like, oh, like they don't value it, so I shouldn't value it and I should just give it for free. So really, that was when I decided, that reinforced that limiting belief that I shouldn't charge for the service that I provide, or charge heavily for the service I provide. What did I learn from it? The lesson was, people value what they value. Some people value a $5,000 Louis Vuitton purse. Other people value a $5,000 vacation. Other people value a $1,000 certification. So we all value different things. And I also learned that some people really need to viscerally feel a tangible result from something before they actually have value in it. So in my case, I learned that a lot of people needed to actually feel Pilates in their body and feel what it physically did for them before they're like, oh shit, that is really good. That's highly valuable, because I'm not getting that anywhere else through any other physical activity I'm doing. And so, that was the lesson I learned, that they needed to have a lived experience. My new belief system is, when I have more money, I can have more impact. I can help more people. And the more I charge for my services, the more that I can reinvest in my education, which better helps serve my clients. So it was kind of like this loop. And so that was the new belief system that I take with me now, even to this day. So that's an example of kind of working through a limiting belief. This is a great exercise to do, especially if you're doubting yourself a lot. Like, if you're at this decision point, you have to make these big decisions. You know that there's these influences on you. You know that there's these siren songs going off trying to pull you in a million different directions. So whatever decision or pivot point that you're at in your life, filter it through, what is the belief about where I am? And walk through this exercise and see if it's actually a limiting belief, or if it's more of an intentional, supportive belief. And that's where we want more of those intentional and supportive belief systems, because that's really what's going to propel you forward. That's what's going to connect you to your intuition. That's what's going to give you the faith to take the leap and actually make the decisions you need to in your life. All right, ladies, it's been a pleasure. I loved every minute of this. So go slay your sirens, sit in thought, and May all your decisions feel a little bit easier after today. All right, guys. Bye for now.